So, Rachel, I am so thrilled that we are going to have a chance to speak about what information is being parlayed to the consumer and to the masses out there, because, we're all accustomed to Googling in the middle of the night or trying to understand our questions, fears, and concerns from the web. And in truth, we really need to rely on some of the journalists and editors who are providing information in the health and wellness space.
One of the passions I've always had is creating these conversations around all of these topics to get rid of the, I hate to use the word taboo, but creating conversations around these categories that are stigmatized. And one of the fun things about the conversation that we're going to get to have with Beauty Independent is that as a digital publication that started in beauty, they're helping to expand that conversation into wellness. Are you seeing a difference in the comfort that your patients have with even bringing up some of these topics that you've been discussing for a long time?
Definitely. And part of it is because it's on my radar to make it more comfortable. But I think that the millennial generations and below have a much different comfort level with discussing subjects with proper names for anatomic parts, problems that might typically be reserved for, the big secret keeper, best friend, perhaps, like sexual pain or products that they use for something along that line. But I also think that there is a big push towards intimate beauty. And what does the intimate skin look like? Is it healthy? How is it best to manage and maintain vaginal health? And I'm not talking about pharmaceuticals or medication. I'm talking about day-to-day products. So I think this will be a super interesting conversation.
And in that regard, does that give women one more thing that they could feel like they have to keep up with? Like, now I have to worry about my hair looks and my skin and my weight, and now my vaginal and vulvar skin?
You bet. I mean, why would we want to use face cream every single day, but not address our vulvas or vaginas? And this is a conversation starter in my office every day. Welcome to the Business of the V. Hello, friends and colleagues. I'm Dr. Alyssa Dweck.
And I'm Rachel Braun-Scherl. Each week, we bring you the most fascinating investors, inventors, entrepreneurs, academics, and healthcare practitioners who are making things happen in women's sexual and reproductive health.
If you are a woman, know a woman, have a business, or care about your V health and wellness, fasten your seatbelts and listen in to another informative and inspiring episode.
We are so excited to have our guest today, Claire McCormack, who's an editor of Beauty Independent, which she will tell you about, but it's a startup itself, which has just been growing and booming and expanding over the last couple of years. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Tell us a little bit about the journey of where Beauty Independent started, the initial intent, and how you've expanded and added other services over the course of the past couple of years.
Absolutely. We started as an outgrowth of Indie Beauty Expo, which were in trade shows, beauty and wellness trade shows for entrepreneur-led brands. So there's lots of beauty trade shows that are for companies that are owned by bigger companies. That's not who we were about. We were about those founder-led brands, independent brands. And as we worked closely, we launched those in 2015. And as we worked really closely with those founder-led brands, we saw there was this real hole in the market in editorial and business coverage for the entrepreneur-led brands. You can find a lot of news about what Estee Lauder and L'Oreal and Unilever are doing. But when you're this entrepreneur, when you're founding your own beauty wellness brand, there was a lot of, where do I go for this? How do I find a manufacturer? What do I do with my labels? And everything moves so fast. And so we said, wow, this is a way we want to serve this community. So in 2017, we launched Beauty Independent as a digital publication. We cover the entire beauty industry and wellness, always through the entrepreneurial lens. So most of the brands that we cover, well, all the brands that we cover are entrepreneur-led brands. We'll obviously talk about those bigger companies, but again, it's more how what they're doing impacts the founder-led brands. And since 2017, what's been amazing to watch is how many sexual wellness brands have launched and come into the market. And again, because we cover founder-led businesses, these are so often entrepreneurs that say, I couldn't find what I needed on the market. I couldn't solve my problem with what's out there.
We've been living and breathing in this space. Alyssa, obviously on the patient care side, and for me on the business building side. But we're really interested in understanding, clearly the space of sexual and reproductive health has exploded. Yeah. Talk to us about internally how, as a company, you made the transition from beauty, which is where you started and where your roots were, to beauty/wellness, sexual wellness, which is a trend that we've been seeing, and thrilled that you guys are helping to push that forward as well.
I think because we are so have the pulse of the trends as soon as they're emerging, I will give us big props for that. We see trends before anyone else because we're covering those brands literally just as they're launching. And it's undeniable. It was so prevalent. We saw so many amazing entrepreneurs starting brands in the wellness and in the sexual wellness space that we would be remiss if we didn't expand our universe to include them, basically.
What I'm seeing on the front lines are trends that are really just rocking the universe of sexual wellness. So, for example, the purposeful absence of particular chemicals, hormone disruptors, fragrances, dyes. And I think, just as you noted, many of these trends come out of personal stories or sensitivities or medical histories of these entrepreneurs who find that this is super important. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, and it's great to talk to you about this because I see a lot of the entrepreneurs, not a lot of them, but a handful of them are doctors themselves. And who better than you to know where the white space is? Because there are people telling their OBGYNs problems that they're not talking to anyone else about, right? And so as an OBGYN, you're like, wow, this is really an issue. Women are really underserved in this way when it comes to something like a lubricant that's not full of chemicals that you can't pronounce, or something that will disturb the vaginal pH, which is, I think, it's beautiful that consumers are becoming so much more aware of the fact that we have this vaginal pH, that it is so delicate, and that when it's disrupted, how troublesome that can be, and all the health issues that can lead to. And I think that consumer awareness, and we see this is happening across all of beauty and wellness. Consumer awareness, consumers are so much more educated today. They're able to access information, not all of it good, but for the most part, they're able to access quality information. And so they're able to go down that aisle in Walgreens and say, I don't want this product. This product looks terribly made, and it's been made the same way for decades. So they want those other options, and technology has allowed entrepreneurs to create those other options and bring them to market.
Yeah, no question about it. I'm so glad you brought up lubricants. That's a huge area and space that's exploded, but also there are a lot of products there that really cause sensitivities for people. Some of the, even the menstrual hygiene products, and I'm not sure how involved you get in that space, but this whole organic versus conventional differences. And for some people, it really can make all the difference in how they feel on a day-to-day basis.
For sure. And it's just having those options out there. If you want to use the traditional products, use those. But again, as people become more aware of there are other options, as more options become available and people are aware of, oh, maybe this thing I'm experiencing is actually a reaction. So let me try something else. And then when they find relief, or they successfully switch to something that doesn't have XYZ chemical, and again, like it affects your whole quality of life, right? I mean, sexual health is so integral to our overall health and how we feel, I think, especially as women.
What do I say, Rachel? Sexual health and general health go hand in hand.
You took the words out of our mouth, because one of the things that is interesting about how you cover beauty, you take an inside out and outside in perspective, and the narrative around, as Alyssa just said, sexual health and women's health is you can't just talk about one aspect of a woman's life. You can't talk about sexual health without talking about mental health, and you can't talk about cardiac health without talking about bone health. So one of the things that I love about the conversation that you're having, both in beauty and in this broader category of wellness, is it's not just one piece or one physiological system. And we certainly know, and Alyssa knows better than anybody, how complicated all these things are and how intersecting they are in sexual health and reproductive health, in well aging, in beautiful skin, in nutrition, in sleep, in menopause. So as you're seeing more of these companies, because it is interesting, there are companies who start with facial or body beauty and go into sexual wellness, and then there's some that start, as we say, in the V, and then go to broader places. What are you seeing as the primary trends? Where are these, wellness brands focused on sexuality and reproductive and women? Where do you see them starting?
Well, you say menopause, and I want to dig in there a little bit, because that's been extra exciting for me as a journalist to see how many brands are launching in that space or launching into that space. I think of there's brands like Woman-ness who want to cover everything, right? So they have the vibrator, they have the herbal supplements to help regulate hormones, they have a neck cream, and they have a lubricant, right? So they have it all the areas of life that get impacted as we get older and our estrogen levels start to decrease. But they're at like this more accessible price point. Then we also have brands like La Maria, beautiful brand, very prestige, over $100. She launched very recently with 2 products, a face moisturizer and a labia moisturizer. And again, you would look at even the product that's for the vulva, and it looks like like this beautiful facial serum. You wouldn't know that it would be, again, going back to like that, what these products usually look like, doesn't look like that at all. So I see brands are launching directly into this category now in a way, I would say in the past 6 months, that's really accelerated. And I think that it's also what's happened at the same time, which is probably fueling it, is investment has really come into the space in a big way. I mean, like Woman-ness, I interviewed them. They were oversubscribed. They had to turn investors away for their funding round, which is amazing. Like she said, I had men crying that they couldn't invest in my company.
Which is totally new, as someone who's been in this space for quite a long time.
That was not the reality.
That is not the reality. And one of the other things, we see a bunch of characteristics that are lending to increased funding. So first of all, there's many more entrepreneurs. There are many more creative sources of capital. There are many, many, many more companies in the hundreds. And this has been building and building. And I think COVID has really accelerated that, because there's a greater focus on our overall health and our wellness. And we're having bigger discussions about self-care and intimacy. And self-pleasure. But for me, one of the most exciting things is a company like Nordstrom's taking Pulse, which is this very elevated way to think about vaginal lubrication. They now have a whole area where they have Pulse, or they have Pause Well Aging for menopausal skin. And so all the different players in this are starting to reinforce one another, which is really exciting. And that's the way we're really going to see the growth.
Well, I'm curious, Claire, do you notice that there's just a different sentiment now being brought to light, that menopause is not a negative Debbie Downer situation, but really is framed in a more positive light, the way it should be, because it is, after all, a natural life cycle?
I think that what the biggest shift is just that it's being talked about. I think for so long, it really wasn't discussed at all. And so conversations had behind closed doors and in the shadows led to like speculation in the public. And a big part of it I spoke to another brand, Attention Grace, which does a bunch of different products, like incontinence products, but really elevated, beautiful options. Again,
Who also just did a great fundraise.
yes, exactly, right? And they said something that I always quote because it was so good. As they were talking to their customers, what their customers told them, again, women in their 40s and 50s, they said, we're just no one's brand darling anymore. And I thought that was so important because it is, as women, we are marketed to so heavy our entire lives. We turn teenagers and everyone is just wants our dollar, wants share of our wallet. And then as we get older, like, okay, we had our kids, and think about maternity. Like that's just like an industrial complex, right? You're pregnant, postpartum, the taking care of the baby. And then you get older, your kids are older, and brands, it's like no one cares about you anymore. Right?
Which is a shame because this is typically a group of women who, number one, have some disposable income.
Yeah.
Number two, they have a thirst for knowledge about their situations. And maybe, like you said, the conversation's getting more notable. Although in my office, there's always been a closed door and we talk about everything.
Yeah.
But, it's definitely out there. I was hoping we could shift a gear for a moment because one of the articles you wrote was so fascinating to me about a big company, Unilever, dropping the word normal from their products. And, this really strikes a chord with me because in my practice, I see so many women who on the mental health side of things really have issues with their quote unquote beauty down there, their V beauty. And is this normal? Is this what I'm supposed to look like? Is this what it's supposed to, maybe smell like or feel like? And so I feel like there's been a real translation from, normal to what is normal. What can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, I think it's a great move by Unilever. Of course, when big companies do this, it's always like, okay, like makes a great press release for you guys, but okay, like the net is positive because when you use the word normal, automatically the other side of that coin is abnormal. So much to your point, women are left with this feeling, oh gosh, am I on the normal side of the coin or am I on the abnormal side of the coin? And again, because especially when it comes to sexual health wellness, you talk about like what our vagina and our vulva look like. We don't really talk about it. You're left to wonder, like, am I abnormal? And that's why I love, there's an Instagram profile in a company called the Vulva Gallery. Have you guys heard of this?
Yeah, there's a huge art installment of, 100 plaster of Paris vulvas. No two are alike. I often bring this up as a big, huge photo in my exam room for women who are contemplating labiaplasty because they think they don't look normal. And that's kind of why I brought this up, because there's this whole issue with body dysmorphic disorder, which is basically when some women will make a huge obsessive deal about a very small flaw that most people don't even notice. Yeah. And it's a problem. It's a problem in the mental health world. So that's why I brought up the normal comment. So here's today's hot flash. I'd like to discuss something called body dysmorphic disorder, which is actually a distinct mental disorder in which a person is overly preoccupied with an imagined or really minor physical defect. And in my world, this is about the vulva and the vagina. So now with grooming being so popular and hair removal exposing the entire vulva for view, it's more important than ever that we get information from media, particularly an outfit such as the one we've just discussed, so that we know what is normal, what's out there, what products are available to help with maintenance. Plenty of people are engaging in these procedures or performing these procedures for aesthetic reasons only, which is why I bring up body dysmorphic disorder, because what is normal to one vulva is not necessarily normal to another vulva. There are no two vulvas that are exactly alike. So a lot of the beauty or normalcy is actually in the eye of the beholder.
What we obsess over is so often not what people are looking at. And I mean, I can only talk in like male-female relationships because I'm a straight woman, but like men aren't when they're getting down and busy, they're not like, well, I don't know. Now seeing your labia, like, I don't know. I just
said no one ever.
no, yeah, exactly.
You'd be surprised. So I do bring this up for a reason.
I'm saying maybe in your office, I'm wondering if we have any moments where people have been caught saying that on camera. In the act. One of the things that's so interesting, though, that you talk about is I think this concept of wellness, which has been very amorphous and sort of so big to be meaningless, now we're starting to put some meaning around it. It isn't just what your skin looks like or your complexion or lines and wrinkles. It's a much bigger concept. And I think that's such an important conversation. And not just with COVID, but again, accelerated by COVID, this increased conversation around mental health and what that means. One of the exciting things for us about talking with folks like you and people in this space is this continuing bigger narrative about, you're not just a menstruating woman or you're not just an ovulating woman. You gave the example about maternity. I think of, you were lucky back in the day, whenever that was, if you could nurse in a supply closet. Now, you have amazing progress in breast pumps and maternity benefits and support for IVF by companies. And we're looking for that, over the next, how long will it take? No one will know, with menopause. Because the other thing that Alyssa mentioned is, in addition, these people are often, women in menopause are often at the peak of their professional career and their ability to make a contribution. So why wouldn't we want to make sure that they can continue to make those contributions in the workplace, in their communities, in all aspects of their life? As you look forward with Beauty Independent, and you started, from the expo and have grown, what's next? Do you see another vertical? Do you see other products and supporting services? Talk a little bit about the retail partnership and what's coming after that.
Absolutely. So as COVID impacted all businesses, it impacted us in a huge way. Our trade shows, we were doing 5 a year. They were international, and COVID happened and we had to pivot. Yeah. So quickly. And so our Add It program is our retail partnerships. So it's our initiative of bringing the trade shows online. We still have these incredible relationships with top retailers, Ulta Beauty, Credo, the Detox Market, Whole Foods, all the retailers that brands really want to be in. We know them really well. Over 5 years of doing trade shows, we've cultivated really amazing relationships with the buyers there. And we know brands still want to meet them. And in the absence of trade shows, how can we facilitate those meetings in a way that's really productive for both the brand and for the retailers? And so Add It is our way of working with the brands. And in a way, it's a step up from the trade shows because we're able to work more closely with the brands in how they're pitching those buyers. So I've spoken to so many buyers, they'll go to trade shows and it's great, and there's hundreds of brands, but they get to a brand table, and if you're a buyer at a trade show, hundreds of brands, you're like, okay, I need to move through my paces.
You get 32 seconds.
Right? And a lot of brands, especially first-time entrepreneurs, I don't want to say they blow it, but they spend a lot of time kind of right? So with Add It, we're able to work with those entrepreneurs, the brand founders, to hone that elevator pitch and really get out of the gate with their unique selling propositions, what their brand is really about, what does that buyer want to hear? Because of course, the pitch is going to be a little bit different for Whole Foods than it is for the detox market. So also being able to work with them in that way to hone their pitch as well.
I think that is, right now, with everything seeming to be direct to consumer in my practice, women were so, up on self-care, and they really wanted to try to take matters into their own hands so they didn't have to come to the doctor's office or in preparation for maybe a telehealth visit. Would you say that the huge trend that you're seeing is mostly direct to consumer?
Yeah, I think all brands now launch direct to consumer, quote unquote. And that was just a few years ago. That wasn't the case. Brands launched and wanted to have at least one major retail partner lined up for launch time. Brands are now being able to launch direct to consumer. But I will say, especially when it comes to beauty wellness, this is such a high touch experience, and it's something that consumers really want to experience in real life. All brand founders want to, at some point, enter a retail partnership. And every single one of them without fail, one of the questions I always ask are, who are your dream retail partners? And none of them say, no, we're going to stay DTC for into perpetuity. None of them, right? And we see this with all these major DTC brands going into Target and Walmart. Even the big guys with millions and millions of dollars know that there is a level of scaling that happens when you go into a big retailer.
And I think COVID and the trends that we've seen reinforce that. I think at certain points they've said you can be all, bricks and mortar or all direct to consumer. And now everybody, it appears, is looking at multi-channel. When you look ahead, and I'm sure you're having all these strategic discussions, what is next? So you've expanded the range of kinds of companies you look at. You've added at it. That's a tongue twister. What do you see coming next? Where are you expanding? Because one of the things that you do is you help companies and entrepreneurs see all the different places they could potentially play.
The In Conversation webinar series was a big shift for us, as again, we always go back to wanting to be a partner to these entrepreneurs and how can we serve them and how can we give them the most critical data. And our In Conversation webinar series has really allowed us to bring together some of the greatest minds in beauty and wellness and give information that's of the moment and super important. So I think digging more into that, Rachel and I wanting to do a lot more in-depth analysis type pieces so there's just so much data out there, which is great, but it's also completely overwhelming, especially
How do you bring the medical world into your vetting process, or do you at all?
For the brands that we cover?
The brands and the products. I mean, it's almost like you have to really dive deep into ingredients and safety and people's medical, histories, perhaps.
We always bring an element of that in. We make sure to say that we're not medical professionals and nothing that we're doing. We're more covering the business side of it, and brands that do that really well will always highlight that. And I think in sexual wellness, especially, brands are really good about having on their advisory board, they'll have doctors. Again, a lot of times the brand founders are doctors themselves. I think of the Future Method. I think of Lassant. The doctors themselves say, this is needed. I'm going to launch it myself.
It is quite interesting. One of the things that you pointed out, so many of these companies are wise and know that they need to have, even if they're a consumer business, you can't be making these big claims about good for you and natural without having some sort of evidence. And obviously the regulatory path for skincare products sometimes differs from what you see with products that are applied vaginally or to the vulvar tissue. One of the things that we get so excited about in this space is this idea of the personal story. Whether it's a physician, whether it's an entrepreneur, they experience a situation, a challenge, a problem. They scan the universe, they don't find any good solutions, and they say, I'm going to create one for myself. And oh, by the way, it turns out this is a great idea and millions of other people could benefit from that. Has this been a shift, or is it just this is more the reality that so many of the brands and the businesses that you highlight start with that story? I don't feel like back in the day, I'm not sure, years ago, skincare brands came forth with these kinds of personal stories.
Yeah, it's a focus of the founder-led brands. And I think the rise of clean beauty is a big part of it, because as, again, consumers became more educated in ingredients, it's all these brand founders continue to be consumers. At one time, they were only consumers, not a brand founder. And so they looked on the market, couldn't find what they wanted. And over the past few years, it's then become possible for them to become a brand founder. So that technology wasn't always available to say, oh, I can't find a face serum that doesn't have XYZ. I'm going to go make my own. Now people can do that. And that's been a fairly recent development. And so the founder story becomes central to it, because that's really what their brand is all about. That's their reason to exist. There are some founders that say, I'm not the focus. I want to take a back seat, which we always respect. But for the most part, that's the most compelling thing. And to hear a founder talk about their brand is amazing. I don't know if you all know the brand Awkward Essentials. She makes strips. Oh my God. I absolutely love her. She just raised another $2.5 million. And just to hear her talk about her brand and about her cum sponge, and her telling me about going in front of a room full of male investors to talk about post-sex cleanup is amazing. And it always, I talk about her whenever I can, because that's so compelling.
It's so new, as I said, having been at this for a while and having fundraised with those men talking about, arousal and orgasm.
Yes.
There's so many founders in this space that I've known or had the privilege of working with who had that moment where you had to say something like, the CEO of Awkward Essentials, and the room just goes totally silent.
Yeah.
One of the parts that I love is that in this space, this rising tide raises all boats. And, in Alyssa's office, she works extremely hard. Literally, we don't go anywhere where people don't meet her and say, oh my gosh, I wish my doctor spoke like that. It's the plain speak, it's the explaining the names for things and the right body parts, and the clear communication. So I love the story about Awkward Essentials, and I laugh if she could have been, if Frances could have been in some of these meetings, years ago, you would think that you've gone through time and space and centuries to see the progress that we've made. And it's absolutely a rising tide raises all boats, because, this idea of a sponge for post-sex cleanup and actually raising money is spectacular.
It's so simple that it's super successful. I actually, before meeting a bunch of people on this podcast, I reached out to Frances and asked her to send me these sponges to my office, because I just couldn't even imagine what this woman had come up with. Fascinating and very well received by patients, because it's just so simple and so straightforward.
Simple. And she's willing to talk about it. And I think that what she does so well, she just handles it with so much humor, which makes it a lot easier. Her Instagram posts are just, I literally laugh out loud, which is so good, because it's just, it also endears the company to people, because you're like, you know what, they're hysterical. And so you just you root for them in a way, because they're not trying to be delicate about it, because it's not a delicate thing. It's about body fluids dripping, and you want to clean it up.
Well, I think, listen, people relate to things and can see themselves somehow. And I think this is where the social media just comes in either very handy or very not handy. But I wanted to ask you about some of the influencers on Instagram, for example, some of these much older, clearly menopausal women who are strutting their stuff and showing off their fashion and their beauty regimens and their general hygiene type regimens. What's your thought on this? This seems brand new to me and very well accepted.
It's brands, like beauty brands especially, are starting to embrace using women that are not basically 25. And it's thank goodness, because I'm in my 40s. If you're going to sell me a peel, right? And let's just talk about skincare and then we'll move to sexual wellness. You're going to sell me a peel. Do you know what my skin looked like when I was 25? It was flawless. Don't show me what your peel does on someone's skin who's 25 years old. and never had a child. I didn't sleep for 10 years and that aged me like 20 years. Like, so it makes perfect sense. Show me what your eyeliner does on an eye that like has a little laxity on the lid. So it makes perfect sense. And going back to what we were saying about women, we now have so much spending power. So you want to market, you want to welcome these women in. And it's been a big part of the diversity, as we've talked about diversity within the beauty industry, which really it needs to focus on skin tone and color and representing people in that way. But it's also brought in diversity in age. We don't want just like these young, perfect people. I want to see what your product does on someone that like has some mileage like me, right? So
I love that. Some mileage. And also we're talking about, diverse skin tone and skin texture and all these other things. But you had mentioned a point about language, and I just wanted to go back to that because we spend so much time making sure that we're able to have these conversations about these important topics like menopause, like vulvar pain, from the most benign to the serious things, infertility, whatever it is, because without the conversation, we can't possibly make the progress that we've been talking about. And that's why, for me, it's so critically important that we continue to have these conversations about post-sex cleanup or the 34 symptoms of menopause or the incredible mental health toll that infertility takes, because those conversations need to happen for progress to be made and for people to have the opportunity to be made aware of these products. Well, we are so appreciative of your time and all the work you're doing at Beauty Independent. We're thrilled that wellness and sexual wellness specifically is becoming much more part of the conversation. And we're always happy when there are people who are looking at the total woman to understand how to live a better life. So thank you.
We have to. And my big hope is that the social media platforms get more on board with these conversations. Just saying, have these conversations. They have a big hand in how easy they are for us to have.
They're going to need to learn to say the word vagina before they can be too advanced in that regard. But I think we're getting there.
Yes, there is progress. More progress needs to be made for sure.
Yeah.
Right. There's a huge amount of progress. And I do like to communicate that optimism because, again, given where we started, we've come a long, long way. That doesn't mean we still don't have a big mountain to climb, but we're getting there.
Thank you so much, Claire, for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you both. This was great. Anytime. Congratulations on the launch of the podcast.
Thanks so much. And we'll hope to speak to you soon.
Absolutely. Bye.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast at businessofthev.com for the latest trends and trendsetters in women's health and business.